My comrade friends and my labor right friends, there is this fixation on crowds, but I'm going to show you what is happening. I'm going to show you what is happening in Jamaica. The first thing that you have to understand is what is called the demographic divide. The demographic divide. And here is where it becomes very interesting, and also why polls in Jamaica are usually wrong. The demographic divide between the JLP and the PNP may be a key factor in understanding the difference in crowd size. Very, very important point. The JLP's support is largely may be a stretch, but among the working class, the middle class, and as such, they are not as visible in meetings, while the PNP support is among the lower class, the common man. And if you look at the polls, you will see that coming out, where that class of people feel that the PNP is better suited to govern the country. The higher up you go in the social class, the more support you see for the Jamaica Labour Party. That is a statistical fact. And so, demographic support is one of the reasons why you are seeing large turnouts at the PNP meetings. It does not mean that the PNP has the momentum, and it does not suggest that the PNP is winning the election. Stay with me, because we are about to unlock this fixation. You know, it's more than a fixation, because it is causing a bit of unease even among Labour Party. Even among Labour Party supporters that are asking me, neighbor, how is it that the PNP is having such large meetings? Don't worry about it. You're gonna have to pay me for this evening, you know. I'm not going to. I'm not gonna do it for. I'm not gonna ease your anxiety for free. Okay. All right, let's get back. Demographic support. First thing. Secondly, is that there are different support bases. These 2 points are basically the same, but they are different. Pay attention. The different support bases of the two parties contributes to the disparity in the crowd sizes. The JLP support among the middle and upper class may be more influential in terms of financial resources, social networks, and opinion leadership, while the PNP's support among the masses is more visible in terms of sheer numbers. What the PNP is able to do is to show their support with numbers. The JLP is armed and more dangerous. Watch me. All right, so we did demographic divide and we did different support bases. Thirdly is what we call disproportionate enthusiasm. Disproportionate enthusiasm. The enthusiasm of the PNP may be disproportionate to their actual voting power, while the JLP supporters may be more subdued in their enthusiasm, but more consistent in their voting behavior. This can lead to a situation where the PNP appears to have more momentum, but the JLP will ultimately win the election. Oxymoronic? Moronic? We're just getting started. We're talking about crowd sizes. I'm doing this because the people are calling me and asking me to explain how is it that the PNP is boasting such large crowds. As are they winning the election? And I'm explaining that, and so I go, don't be fooled. You know, we need more people to analyze the politics, to do the science, the psychology of the politics, and help the people to understand it. It's not an emotional game. It's realism. It's not emotionalism. It's realism. So the demographic divide and the different support base, and we went on to the disproportionate enthusiasm. Fourthly, the depth of support. The depth of support for the JLP among certain demographics, such as the middle and upper class, is far more significant than the surface level enthusiasm of the PNP supporters. This depth of support translates into votes and ultimately determine the outcome of elections. In other words, what you see at the PNP meetings is all the PNP got. What you see at the JLP's meeting is half the story. Depth of support. repeat that. What you see at the PNP's meetings is all the PNP's got. What you see at a Labour Party meeting is half of the story. The Labour Party supporters oh boy. Oh, let's go again. Demographic divide. The difference in support bases, the disproportionate enthusiasm, the depth of support, and what is called decoupling crowd size from election outcomes. It is essential, listeners, to decouple crowd size from election outcomes, recognizing that they are not directly correlated. While large crowds can be an indicator of enthusiasm, and momentum, they do not necessarily translate into votes. The JLP's support among the key demographics and its policy initiatives is ultimately going to prove more decisive than any crowd that the PNP is able to pull. And that is what is going to determine the election outcome. That's the first point. Let's review quickly for those who are just joining us. I have been asked by some of my friends to explain my understanding of the large crowds that the PNP is attracting. Does it mean that they are winning? Absolutely not. And so I am explaining, I'm giving you 5 things why the Jamaica Labour Party ought not to be too concerned about these PNP crowds. The relationship between crowd size and election outcomes. My first point, and I'm giving you 5 reasons. Firstly, demographic divide. The demographic divide between the JLP and the PNP may be a key factor in understanding the difference in crowd sizes, because the JLP support is large in the middle class and the upper class too. They have broad support in the 3 demographics: lower, middle, upper. The PNP can claim to win the lower class. The polls show that those are the people that fills up the meetings. So there is a visible attendance at the meetings. Middle class people are in their living rooms watching the meetings on YouTube and on TV. And so the PNP's support among the lower class may be more evident in larger crowds. Demographic divide. Secondly, difference in support bases. Both 1 and 2 are the same thing, but slightly different. The different support bases of the two parties contributes to the disparity in crowd sizes, because the Labour Party support is disproportionately spread across the demographics, and therefore they have larger support. Just that middle upper don't really come to meetings, but they vote. The upper class is more influential in terms of financial resources, social networks, opinion leadership, while the PNP support is among the masses, and this mass is visible in terms of sheer numbers. The PNP can fill the auditorium, but the PNP support is just that. Thirdly, disproportionate enthusiasm. The enthusiasm of the PNP supporters may be disproportionate to their actual voting power, while the JLP supporters may be more subdued in their enthusiasm, but more consistent in their voting behavior. That also comes out in the polls. Whenever you see a poll out in Jamaica, add 2 or 3 points to the Labour Party percentage, always underpolled. Labour Party support is always underpolled because Labour Party supporters tend to be less enthusiastic in terms of telling people who they are going to vote for, and also because of their support across the demographics, upper, middle, lower. And so this could lead to a situation where the PNP appears to have more momentum, but the JLP ultimately is winning the election. Fourthly, the depth of the support. The depth of support for the JLP among certain demographics, such as the middle and upper class, may be more significant than the surface level enthusiasm of the PNP supporters. This depth of support could translate into votes and will ultimately determine the outcome of the election. The outcome of the election is dependent on the depth of the support. And finally, this whole matter of decoupling, where it is essential to decouple crowd size from election outcomes. Recognize that the two are not directly correlated. Large crowds can be an indicator of enthusiasm and momentum. They do not necessarily translate into votes. The JLP support among the key demographics and its policy initiatives, its performance in government, and its popular leader is going to prove more decisive in determining the outcome of the election than any crowd size. Let's move on. Can we? Are we? Should we? Let's go on. Let's go on. We have lots to cover. What does decoupling mean? Okay, so decoupling, in other words, you have to decouple crowd size from election outcomes. It means that a large crowd does not automatically guarantee a win for a particular candidate or party. A small crowd does not necessarily mean a candidate or party will lose. So you can have a small crowd, yet you win the election, and you can have a large crowd, you can lose the election. So instead, election outcomes are often determined by a complex array of factors, including voter turnout, voter sentiments, policy positions, and the effectiveness of the campaign. Let's do that again. Voter turnout, sentiments, policy positions, and campaign effectiveness. All right. Okay, go with that. All right. Now let's go to the polling. There is a dynamic in polling in Jamaica that bears some correlation to the points I just raised with you. But there are some people online here. Let me see. There are some folks online. Okay, I don't know. Okay, that bears some correlation. Hello, Chance. How are you? To the points I just raised. The social class of JLP supporters may contribute to their reluctance to participate in polls. The participants in a poll largely are people who love the camera, and those are the people in the lower class where the mass of the PNP support is from. You cannot deny it, you know. So upper class, middle class people, not very enthusiastic to go talk to no pollsters. They don't even have the time. Going about their business, going to work, etc. What this does is that it potentially skews the results in favor of the PNP. Middle class individuals may be more private or less inclined to share their political views with pollsters. People in the upper class and the middle class, you don't know who they're voting for. They are not, well, I'm not middle class, I'm not upper class, but if a pollster came to me to ask me who am I voting for, I wouldn't tell them. But you see the people in the lower class, oh, they are very expressive. They are very ready to identify. They are the people that wear the colors. You would never see me in a green shirt or an orange shirt. You see middle class, teachers, policemen, business people, they don't wear green shirts or orange shirts. They do not want to be labeled. They do not want to be, because the polarizing nature of politics in Jamaica, that can affect you. It can affect you getting a job, advancing in your career. So you're not likely to tell any pollster who it is that you're going to vote for. So you have to understand the social class and poll responses or poll response. And because the Labour Party has large support among the middle and upper class, poll results in Jamaica are normally skewed in favor of the People's National Party. And so I always say to folks that when you see a poll come out in Jamaica, if the poll says that the Labour Party is 4 points ahead, put them 6. And if the poll says the PNP is 3 points ahead, then they are 1 point ahead because of the social class and poll responses. Secondly, it is what is called supporter demographics polling. Supporter demographics polling. What do I mean by that? The demographics, and when we speak of demographics, what we're talking about is classes, the different types of social class. Social class meaning, economic, among other things. The demographics of the PNP supporters are more likely to participate in polls, potentially inflating their numbers. PNP supporters may be more vocal and enthusiastic about their party affiliation. It is one of the things that I have noted in recent times, that the Labour Party supporters are just beginning to be a little bit more, outspoken. You see them matching the PNP in terms of enthusiasm and things like that. But there's still a demographics relationship between supporters and polling. So PNP supporters may be more vocal, more enthusiastic about their party's affiliation, leading to a greater willingness to share their views with pollsters. For example, the protest that was held in Hero Circle, look how enthusiastic the PNP supporters were, though they were talking nonsense. They were talking about accounts, taking accounts and all of that. But they were very enthusiastic, very confident to speak to the camera. I saw people in the social class, every time them see a camera or somebody to say something to, it's almost like they are so desperate to be heard. It's not a joke. They're so desperate to be heard that they just want to get their views out there. Historically, PNP supporters are more vocal. You notice them at the meetings with their fists clenched. By the way, I don't like this song talking about the Labour right them, the Blood and Fire comrades. The song about the Labour right them. I don't know that they should be referring to Labour Party supporters are as the Labour right them. It's divisive. Anyway, we can get to that at some other time. And then you have what is called the silent majority. So social class and poll response, supporter demographics and polling, and then you have what is called the silent majority. Think about it. The JLP supporters may represent a silent majority. The majority are not at the meetings. The majority of JLP supporters are not at the meetings. It appears that the majority of the PNP's supporters are at their meetings. because of demographics. We do the JLP supporters do not feel the need to express their views publicly to pollsters. This silence could lead to an underestimation of JLP support in polls, potentially masking the party's true level of support. When Holness won in 2016, I think even himself was shocked. Why is that? They had the silent majority. The polls were not showing them winning. Yes. The enthusiasm, much higher. You remember Portia Simpson? I look like a loser. Yeah. I look like I can lose. She lost. And Holness won because they had the silent majority. Labour Party support is not reflected in their meetings. A lot of people who are supporting the Labour Party do not attend meetings or their meetings. So polls potentially mask the party's true level of support. Anyone listening to this program tonight that thinks that the PNP has more support because of these massive meetings that they're having, you don't understand the politics, you don't understand the psychology of the politics, and you haven't followed closely elections in Jamaica. The Labour Party has, well, the Labour Party has a silent majority. Finally, the disparity in poll between the JLP and the PNP skews the polling results, giving the PNP an artificially inflated lead. Don Anderson falls into this trap. The 3% that you see Don Anderson gave to the PNP is a skewed result because he has fallen into the trap of not focusing on core supporters, the social class, the demographics, and therefore the results are skewed, artificially skewed. Scientifically done, but artificially skewed. Inflated. It's an inflated result. And this, what this has done is that it has created a false narrative about the election's competitiveness and potentially influence voter behavior. That's why I don't give a hoot about polls. What I have told you highlights the potential limitations of polling in capturing voter intentions, particularly when there are differences in supporter demographics and behavior between the two political parties. The psychology of it is why the polls are skewed. It's an artificially inflated number that they mistakenly give to the PNP. And it's not good for the PNP either, because the PNP is now running like they are ahead, when in truth and in fact, as I have been explaining to you, They're not ahead. They only appear to be ahead because of the various points I have pointed out to you. Yes. So is the election competitive? Well, our projections do not suggest that. The polls do, because the polls do not capture the Labour Party's silent majority. The Labour Party demographic support, the Labour Party social class and poll response, and therefore the anxiety among the supporters of the Labour Party can be put to rest. I'm putting to rest, and I want you to, I'm just telling you the truth. I'm not. All right, so here's a little piece of advice to the that I want to give to the, I want to give this piece of advice to the Jamaica Labour Party. I have said that I'm not a partisan, Pan-Africanist. You're an African, sir. I'm not a partisan. I have not made up my mind if I am going to vote. I am waiting to read the party's manifesto. I've been looking at the policies of both parties. I am not a conservative. I think that I am progressive in my thinking. I focus a lot on social issues. Yes, I am a man of the people. I strongly believe in empowering people to aspire, to inspire people to aspire. And I think that is done through economic empowerment. I believe also in greater wealth distribution. But where I am conservative is that if wealth is to be distributed, it must be created. So you can't distribute what you don't create. How men organize to produce the means of their subsistence constitutes the fundamentals of society. It's not through social programs that people are empowered. People are empowered when they are creating wealth for themselves. And in order to do that, you have to empower your people. And you empower them through education, training, and a social environment that transform their minds. Adam Smith speaks of the poverty of aspirations. The poverty of aspirations. And what he is saying there is that if you're going to change people, if people are going to aspire, you have to change their environment. You have to lift them out of the environment. It's the nurturing part of it. Yes, and I believe that economic development must be paired with social development, and social development must be inclusive. So I'm not a conservative. Yes, I believe in wealth distribution. But if you're going to distribute the wealth, you have to create it. Yes, create the wealth, and then I don't deal with trickle down. I don't deal with trickle down. Trickle down is marginalizing. We don't deal with that. All right. Anyway, so I'm not I will decide in due time, and I will tell you where I'm going to cast my ballot. I feel, though, in looking at both parties, that this government has strong credibility and is seriously being considered, not by myself only, but by many people that I've spoken to, feel that it would be in Jamaica's best interest to continue with this government. But I am a believer in democracy, and therefore that decision is left up to the Jamaican people. And I trust the Jamaican people that at the right time, they will make the right decisions. Labour Party, I'll give you 3 pieces of advice. Firstly, focus. Don't be distracted by crowds. Focus. Be focused. And it is important when you're in a battle, you focus. Focus on mobilizing and energizing your core support. You see the masses? Don't allow the PNP to set the narrative at the base. This Jamaica Labour Party should be controlling the masses. It has done too much for the PNP to be ahead in that demographic. This Labour Party, uno could have vexed a little bit. Uno could have vexed a little more. I'm going to tell you the truth. Uno could have vexed. Oh boy, I tell you, give me a second. I'm going to come right back to that. Uno could have vexed a little more. I'm going to tell the people the truth. Yeah, so I've dealt with the crowd. I've dealt with the poll. Now I am on to advice. Focus on the core supporters. You see the common man, labor rights, hierarchy of the Jamaica Labour Party. You see the common man, focus. Focus there. That demographic is where the PNP is strong. And the PNP is winning that demographic. And I'm going to do it. Can I do it tomorrow? Can I? Could I do that tomorrow? Can I tell them why? It is amazing. It has to do with marketing. It has to do with marketing. The party that has done the most for that group is not getting the voter support because of a lapse in marketing. Focus on your core supporters. Low class, middle class, working class. Because by doing so, you can build a strong foundation of support that will translate into votes on election day. Because, you see, the upper class, they may give you money, but they may not even vote. The votes are in the working class and the lower class. Focus on core supporters. Secondly, foster a strong ground game. Invest in building a strong ground game. Well, if you haven't done so yet, you're late. You need a robust network of volunteers, activists, community organizers to help the party identify and mobilize its supporters, particularly in the key constituencies. We told you those constituencies last night. And finally, so focus, foster, fight. Fight the narrative. Fight this narrative that the PNP cares more for the poor than the Jamaica Labour Party. It is a lie. It is a lie. That narrative must be fought. One, that narrative must be destroyed. It is not true. It is not true that the People's National Party cares more about the poor than the Jamaica Labour Party. That narrative must be fought. And if I was part of the Labour Party, if I was a member of the Labour Party, and if I was part of the Labour Party's PR, I would win that narrative. There's no way the PNP could win that. No way. Not with what not with what the party would have done over the last 9 years for the poor. The JLP should be prepared to challenge the narrative that the PNP loves the poor more. The party that has been responsible for the greatest transfer of wealth from the poor to the rich since the abolition of slavery is perceived in Jamaica to be the party that loves the poor. And the Labour Party has sat down and not fight that narrative. What you have to do is to highlight the things that you have done, the policy successive that you have done for the poor. Yes. You have to build a positive narrative that counter that. If the Labour Party, over the next 2 weeks or so, focuses their fight on this narrative, they win the election easily. Because you have to take back some of that support. You have to highlight your achievements and your policy successes. You have to build a positive narrative that resonates with voters and undermines the PNP's momentum. By following these strategies, I think the party can build a strong campaign that focuses its core supporters, focus on its core supporters, well organized on the ground, and effective in shaping the narrative of the election. The Labour Party must shape the narrative of the election. It must not allow the PNP to shape the narrative. People must be speaking about what the Labour Party is saying, not what the PNP is saying, what it is that the Labour Party is saying. Focus, foster, fight. And so, in summary, crowds do not win elections. But this can be seen as oxymoronic, given that people and crowds are essential to winning elections. The key nuance here is that while crowds can generate enthusiasm and momentum, it's individual votes that ultimately determine the outcome of an election. The message here is that simply having large crowds or high levels of enthusiasm is not enough to win an election. Instead, a successful campaign needs to translate that enthusiasm into actual votes, which requires effective voter outreach and a clear message that resonates with voters. In other words, crowds can be an important part of a campaign overall strategy, but they are not a substitute for the hard work of building a strong campaign organization. Identifying and mobilizing supporters and getting out the vote on election day is what wins the election. This message is essential to understand because it is a reminder to focus on the nuts and bolts of campaigning rather than just relying on crowd size, on enthusiasm to carry the day. You need to strike the balance between generating enthusiasm and building a strong campaign organization. Parties, in this case, the Jamaica Labour Party, can maximize their chances will see the success on election day. Thank you for listening to the Neighbors Notes. The lines are now open for you to join and to discuss these or other matters